Sometimes I miss the rain and the buses and the trains and the crater hills of my hometown. Sneaking around between the drops and the daylight and the cops, keeping my collar up and my head down. Your fingertips were pink, and all that I could think was, can we get this deal done any faster? And later that day, I'm compounding away in the basement of Dave's Discount Disaster. We both slept out of the track, but it was you who was not coming back. I was either gonna go or die and stay. Mr. O'Neill, how does it feel clinging to the outside of the wheel, losing our grip, just one more slip, something's gonna give way, something's gonna give way. Why you showed up at the show, I'll never know. Then you followed me back to my hotel. In the end I slipped away with the help of the valet, 'cause I'd had enough of what you had to sell. And we had our fun as well, for it all turned to hell. Stone piano player and wasted crooner. But if we got back what we gave for every close shave, we'd have bottomed out a few years sooner. The gravity of your crazy world, the strung out boys and runaway girls got weaker as the years they slipped away. Mr. O'Neill, how does it feel clinging to the outside of the wheel, losing our grip, just one more slip, something's gonna give way. Mr. O'Neill, how does it feel clinging to the outside of the wheel, losing our grip, just one more slip, something's gonna give way, something's gonna give way. Mr. O'Neill, how does it feel clinging to the outside of the wheel, losing our grip, just one more slip, something's gonna give way, something's gonna give way, something's gonna give way, something's gonna give way.
Hey, everybody, welcome to Big Blend Radio's Toast to the Art Show, where we love to celebrate books, music, art, film, you name it. Excited to have singer-songwriter Ted Brown joining us today to talk about his third studio album, Solstice Canyon Loop. I love the name of it, and I love that cover too. And most importantly, the music on it is super cool. And as soon as you start listening to it, you're not going to stop. And Loop is a good name. So welcome, Ted. How are you?
I'm well, thanks, Lisa. Thanks for having me.
Tell me about the loop in there. And then on the cover, you've
Yeah,
got like a little space thingy going on. What's
little
going on?
UFO, little UFO
Yeah,
there.
why not?
Yeah, I mean, it was that is actually a photo of well, originally it was a photo of a trail that I like to hike,
Oh, okay.
and it's pretty close to my home. It's in the Santa Monica Mountains.
Nice.
And it's beautiful. And if you can imagine, on either side of that hill, one side is Pacific Coast Highway, like going
Mm-hmm.
up into the distance as far as the eye can see. On the other side is Palos Verdes and
Oh,
Santa
yeah.
Monica and all that stuff. And then if you look back, you can see the city of Los Angeles. And that is not the Solstice Canyon Loop. The Solstice Canyon Loop is actually also a hike, but it's in a different place. So,
Okay.
but I just liked the idea of, I always liked the idea of the road disappearing into, the infinity thing. And I was feeling very 70s at the time. And to me, part of the 70s is the UFO craze,
Yep.
close encounters and all that stuff. And I was working on the cover, and I just thought it'd be kind of cool if there was a UFO in the wilderness,
Like, why not? Because you
Yeah,
don't know. Because is the UFO leaving, saying it's
yeah,
time to go, or like just going home?
that's right. And look, hey, everybody wants to see a UFO, right? I
Come
mean,
on, I do. Do you
I
believe
do.
in them? Yeah.
I mean, why not? Yeah, I think I do, especially, with that book that came out. What was the
Oh,
author's name? And she, wrote about all that stuff that the government have been releasing, all the naval
yeah.
stuff from San Diego and all that stuff. So it's compelling, it's interesting to me.
I think it's cool. I mean, and I love that. So hiking is good. So I know that you did a lot of this work on the album during the pandemic, right? So
Yep.
did you get to go and hike? I mean, it's suddenly everybody understood the importance of getting out and walking in nature.
Oh, absolutely right. And yes, that was one of my that was my happy place during the pandemic, was getting out on the trail. Although everybody you came, this was before we knew anything, and everybody you came in contact with was wearing a cloth mask.
Yeah. And if
Uh,
someone didn't, they like people would hiss at each other. Yeah.
oh yeah, yeah, I know.
Remember that?
The whole mask thing became such a
Crazy.
yeah. Um, I don't. I could care less whether people wear a mask or not, mostly. But
Mhm.
like wearing a mask on the trail now, it seems like, why would we? We just didn't know anything.
Well, I love the people that were wearing a mask in their car and they were alone. That to me, because like if I wore a mask, the first thing I wanted to do was take it off.
Take it off. Exactly. Me too.
It's like this thing is, and being on the road full time. Well, we got to go outside in nature a lot. And so
Yeah.
we basically had the country to ourselves. We documented,
Mhm.
I think at this point, just during the pandemic, about 1,500 parks. I mean, we were
Wow.
having the time of our life. And then all of a sudden everything opened up and we're like, go home.
Yeah. Yeah.
So but yeah, the mask thing is kind of nuts, but getting together and doing music, that had to be kind of like a therapeutic thing to
Oh my
not
God, it
just
was. I had there's the producer's a New Zealand guy, or the guy I
Mhm.
co-produced with, and who engineered the record, Neil, and he'd worked with Crowded House, and
uh,
he'd been the studio the main engineer at Neil Finn's studio in New Zealand at
mm,
Bunhead, and I'd recorded with him before, and I did an album with him, my last album I did with him, and he'd been living in LA working at Jim Scott's Pliers in Santa Clarita. And we were kind of chatting, because another thing that happened during the pandemic is you kind of caught up with all these people that you hadn't, for me anyway,
yeah.
that I hadn't, like I was just randomly like reaching out to people, like, oh, I wonder what blah is doing and how they're getting along with this. And so I reached out to him and said, what are you doing? What are you up to? And he said, oh, I'm the engineer at Pliers. And I said, well, that's not far from me. It'd be great to make a record. And he said, yeah. And then we kind of left it. And then a few weeks later, he called me and said, I got time this weekend coming up on this date. It was like 2 weeks out. Let's do
Wow.
it. And I said, yeah, if we can track live, like do it the old-fashioned way. So I just reached out to everybody. I reached out to Dusty and all these people. And I said, look, I understand if you guys aren't willing to do this because, but I'll tell you this is a huge space. We can do better than social distance. We can be 10 feet apart from each other. And if you're willing to do it, let's do it. So fortunately, I got, the drummer and Dusty and Joel, the guitar player, all agreed to do it live. And we got together, we did 2 days and we tracked all
That's
the
awesome.
basic tracks. Yeah. And I sang all the vocals live. And
I love recordings like that. And I think that's what you've got, that warmth to it. It's like, it feels like, you turn it on. It's like, and that's why I say about looping it. It's like, okay, we want more songs on the album. That's my only complaint. It's just because, it's good. It's a good album. And you're talking about like Crowded House, and it kind of makes me feel back in that era of that. And I grew up in South Africa. And so like, I'm going to start saying all like you just now and getting my accent back any second.
Yeah.
But all that music was so huge at that time. And I don't know if it was over here as much, but it's kind of like singer-songwriter rock, with like a world vibe to it,
Yeah.
That's just it. It feels just so familiar and good. It's like when you think about the Traveling Wilburys, that kind of good stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's got some country in there.
Yeah.
I have a little bit of country rock. I knew you had an accent. I could hear it by the way. What is that? I was trying to think, what is that accent? I know
it's South African, England, and Kenya and Mexico.
Oh wow.
And American now. So yeah.
I mean, the American is dominant, but and of course South African's very familiar to us, right? Because
See, now I want to go instead of yes. Now it's going to happen. So no, it's it's when you think about music in a global perspective, how different places got the different distribution, right? So to hear you be over here in the States from New Zealand and make this music, you add that, even though you do have a lot of country elements, it just felt like home to me. I can't explain it, or if it's just an era, or I don't know if it's global or era, but Crowded House has their own sound,
I mean, I think that's a really good observation, is that we grew up with different music, and I think that we probably just assume that everybody heard the same thing. But I know Americans who are the same age as me who have no idea of certain things that I grew up listening to, and I don't have much knowledge of some of the things that they grew up listening to that were like, because if you had a record that was big in LA, that was huge. There's a lot of people here, what if it wasn't big anywhere else? If it was big in LA or California even, it's like you can carve out, quite a good living out of that, or you could back then. You probably couldn't now, but
what's that? Carl Rodriguez, Sugarman?
Exactly. Yeah.
He was huge in South Africa, and I didn't know. I didn't even know who he was. He was like Bob Dylan to us. He was the Dylan of South Africa.
Yeah.
And nobody knew him here. And in fact, when I try to get the album, people are looking at me like, "Who are you? Like, what's this?" And I'm like, "How do you not know Rodriguez?"
Yeah.
He was like, and everyone had his album. Every single person I knew in South Africa had an album, but here they didn't, and then suddenly now he gets discovered.
Yeah. And I mean, that was fascinating, that documentary. And of course he passed recently, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, it's sad.
But that was totally fascinating. And I think that there's other examples of stuff like that as well. I mean, there's stuff that we heard. I mean, all you've got to do really is look at the charts, get a snapshot of the charts from like 1975, and then look at all the different countries. And there's crossover, but there's also things like, that only happened in Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, or it's
the distribution because of England and Japan. And Japan played a big role, and we didn't have the internet.
Yeah, true. We didn't have the internet.
That means we're so young. This is a great conversation. You're making me feel younger and younger. But let's go back to New Zealand. So you were in Auckland, right? And tell us a little bit about your Like, when did you start playing? And was it, songwriting first, singing, guitar?
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I grew up listening to, I have older brothers and sisters. So, one of the things that I inherited when they left to go on their OE, which if Americans don't know what that is, for New Zealanders, it was like a rite of passage. When you got to a certain age, you got your passport and you took off and you went to the
Mm-hmm.
UK, mostly the
Yep.
UK. And you got a job and you lived in neighborhoods with other New Zealanders and you made one collect call to your parents every month. you know.
Yep.
What they left me was their record collections. And so,
Ooh.
uh, they were gone, which was, kind of traumatizing because they were, older than me. But I had, a shelves full of, Fleetwood Mac and Bob Dylan and,
Yeah.
you know, my sister and brother both had different music tastes. So, like he had more rock and roll taste. My sister had like soft rock stuff. She had Bread and she had like Neil Diamond records and stuff like that. My brother had, and there was the Eagles and there was Led Zeppelin, classic
Good.
stuff.
That's a good balance. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would, listen to records and
Mm.
listen to records and listen to records. And then I got more into it and I started playing. I got my first guitar when I was 10, I think. And then, I started playing and then by the time I was a teenager, my main interest was being in bands, playing in bands, going record shopping, going and hanging out in music stores and annoying the poor guys who owned guitar stores, and that
Yeah.
was the kind of kid I was, that's what, and living in this kind of fantasy of what was going on in the music scene, which was in another country, as far as, like
Mm.
a couple of bands where we were. I mean, we had Split Ends, right? They were our big, who became Crowded House, or part of them became
Yeah.
Crowded House. Um, but yeah, so, and then I was writing songs or trying to write songs by the time I was in like, this is going to date me too, but you'll know what I'm talking about. By the time I was in like the fourth form or fifth form. So that's,
Okay. The form. Are we going to forms now? Yeah, because I
yeah,
don't know what anybody's talking about anymore with
yeah,
anything because it's grade, and then I think we had trick, standard, grade. I don't know. I don't
yeah,
know anymore.
yeah,
But
yeah,
form sounds more like when I was in England in school. I think we
yeah,
had forms.
yeah. So
Yeah.
that's what we had. Form high school was form 3 through form 7.
Huh.
And you didn't have to go to form 7, but you could if you wanted to do part of that part of going to college. Instead of going to college, you could do another year in high school, and it would kind of like you could get a scholarship and you could sit some stuff where you'd get some money to go to university.
Oh, cool. That's cool.
Yeah,
We had standards in South Africa, and that's where I graduated with standard 8, standard 9. But
yeah,
then, yeah, that's what we had now. I'm like, yeah, oh, well, that was a while ago.
yes. We had standards as well, like, but we only went up to standard 4, I think, and then it became
Oh,
form 1, form 2.
phew.
Yeah.
Okay. And then do you understand anything of what they do in college? Like college level, like when I got here, I didn't know what anyone was talking about.
No,
All the
no, I didn't
none of
know
it.
either. I know now, but
Yeah, when I
yeah,
got here, I was like, I don't know what anyone is talking about. So
yeah.
did you come here because of the music?
Yeah. So I came here. I was playing guitar with a New Zealand artist. I joined his band, and long story, but I joined his band, and uh, I was the person who was willing to come to the States and try and get a record deal with him. I remember he asked me over
Mm.
the summer and said, "Hey, if I said, let's go to LA and do some showcases, and we'll set them up and see if we can get some kind of traction." And I didn't have anything else going on, and I just said, "Yes, I'm down." So we came in 2002, I think.
Mm.
Um, and I got really, on day 2 of being here, I had to have emergency surgery, which
Oh,
is also, a strange twist. So I ended up in Santa Monica, UCLA Santa Monica. I hadn't even seen anything. I'd been seen the inside of a hotel room. And
God, that's like
Yeah, and then I had to have this emergency intestinal surgery, and so I spent my first week in hospital, and then we had all these showcases to do. So they postponed them all, and then I got out of hospital and we started doing them. And I remember I had like gauze wrapped in my stomach.
God.
I'd lost about 20 pounds or something, and because we stayed longer, we got some extra showcases, and because we got some extra showcases, we got a deal. We got a record deal.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
That's quite a story.
Yeah. And so we ended up with this record deal, and they said, well, go home, sort your lives out, come back in a few weeks, and we'll start work. And so we started working with Richard Dashett, who was one of the co-producers of Fleetwood Mac Rumours.
Sweet, yeah.
And that was so much fun because he had so many anecdotes, so many Fleetwood Mac anecdotes.
Oh my God, the stories out of that at that time frame too. And the
Yeah.
Rumors album, that's
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah. So
That was a
he
couple years of stuff too. I think they recorded it over 2 years or something.
Yeah, I think so. And then he was front of house engineer for them. So he was the guy
Wow.
doing front of house for them on their first big stadium tour, you know. And
Wow.
then he was around for Tusk, I think, and then of course, you know, it's Fleetwood Mac, so they all like disbanded and got mad at each other, and you know, did all that stuff.
Fun. It's the great story, and I love that Neil Flynn ended up playing with him at one point. You know,
I know.
isn't that a trip? It's like this
Yeah.
full circle craziness in a
And
way.
Mike Campbell.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I always think it's hilarious that Fleetwood Mac, to replace Lindsay, they had to get two people.
Two guitarists. Yeah, that's well, Lindsay, you know, I think he's underrated as a guitarist,
He's
honestly.
phenomenal.
He
Phenomenal.
really is.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, I love
Just-
Mike Campbell
yeah.
and I love Neil Finn.
Mhm.
And Neil's a great singer and Mike's a great guitar player, but you know, Lindsay is both, you know,
Mhm.
and a great
Yeah.
songwriter, and you know. So
He's pretty primal, actually, Lindsey Buckingham.
yeah, yeah.
You know, like when he does like Big Love, he gets like crazy, like in a little zone there.
Those
you know?
solo performances of Big Love, if you YouTube them, they're
Oh my
amazing.
God, the guitar is insane.
Yeah, yeah.
It's that I think to me, I mean, because he learned that flat picking when he was sick.
Yeah.
He was sick and he was, you know, couldn't work or whatever, and he just learned how to do that and just went for it and always kept in on that innovation of where was music going, what's a new sound. And
Yeah.
do you do that as a writer? You know, because
Well, I mean, I got to say, just this year, I bought my way out of a publishing deal, a bad publishing deal that I'd been in for a long time. I won't say who the company was because,
Sure.
you know,
oh, come on, give us a scandal. No, I'm kidding.
but I will tell you this, is that there was an outstanding unrecouped amount, right? They hadn't done anything for me for years. There'd been no sync, I hadn't really heard from them, nothing. And so I started sending them emails saying, look, I really want to get out of this deal. It's not of mutual benefit to either of us, blah, blah, blah. I offered them cents on the dollar. They wouldn't take it. In the end, I had to pay the full nut to get out of it. So I'm just about to get into another much more friendly arrangement with somebody I know who has their own publishing company. And so I'm looking forward to contributing more songs to the, you know, freeing up more songs, you know, freeing up more creativity. But yeah, I mean, I think that one of the things is that I have very old-fashioned sensibilities when it comes to music. I think it would be, you know, I've said to somebody, and I did an interview where I said to somebody, you'd be forgiven for thinking that I stopped listening to music in 1981 or something, you know, because my songs are, you know, for me, I think that the best time in popular music ever was probably between about 1969 and 1973, maybe up to like 1975. But
yeah, you got to leave 74 in there because that's when Rumors came out.
Right, exactly. Well, wasn't it 77 Rumors?
Well, I think they maybe started work on it in 74, maybe.
Well,
I don't
74
know.
and came out in 76. I think
Maybe, I don't know,
right.
but yeah.
But I mean, God, so much good music came out then, and you know, made by incredibly I mean, like you say, it was different times. You know, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have all these distractions. People were heavily focused
But
on
it's a
stuff.
craft. It's
Yeah,
crafted, and I think your album is that when you listen to the songs, I mean, there's a craftsmanship to it, and I always appreciate that when you put something on and you're just in it, and I don't know, you just get attached to it, and then you start to, it starts getting over and over. That's why I was laughing about the loop part. It's like, yeah, you're just gonna keep looping it. I know everyone, it's on Spotify and Apple, so you can reloop and reloop, and on Bandcamp, which is really
yeah,
important for musicians. Purchase there, like,
yeah,
just
yeah,
saying, Bandcamp Fridays, I'm glad they still keep them because I know they're under new management. But your
yeah.
songwriting is, I can see you doing it with guitar in hand. Do you ever songwrite without a guitar? Because it just feels like it's all inclusive.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's good intuition, because I actually do write like that. I write with a guitar in hand, with paper in front of me and a pen, and I'm
Oh, like a real, like no, okay, no
yeah,
digital.
yeah. What I do digitally is that if I come up with a line or I come up with a melody, I'll sing it into my phone, or I will, if I'm driving, quite often it's very
Oh yeah.
inconvenient, but melodies often come to me when I'm driving. So I'll just sing them. I'll just sing them at the
Mm,
phone, and then I have them. If
mm,
I think of a good line, I just put it into notes on my phone. But when I actually write, when I come to putting it all together, I use pen and paper. It's just
mm,
something, that I like the physical contact of doing it that way. I've always
mm,
done it that way. And I have a guitar on my lap, and
mm,
I have guitars right here ready to go. So
mm,
if I'm gonna write, that they're here.
mm.
Um, I'm not the most prolific person in the world. There's contemporaries of mine, guys I've worked with, who write so much more than I do, and but I've probably written. I think my catalog has like 100 and something.
That's a lot.
Yeah,
And for this album, in the Solstice, with that, did you have all those songs on hand when these, your friends like, hey, I've got space now? I mean, you had to have that
yeah.
all ready. I mean, so was that just like, here's the songs I really want on there, or how did that happen?
Well, I pulled them together. I had some demos, so I tidied the demos up a little bit, um, and I just sent the demos to everybody. Great thing. One of the great things about what we can do now is sending digital files to
Yeah,
people.
no kidding, right?
So I just sent digital files to everybody, and then on the day, like Dusty came, set up a music stand. He had it all charted out, like, so
He
he knew
chart
what was going on.
he knew how to chart it out. Like, I'm not like saying that he doesn't know, but I mean, that's a whole other thing. I was wondering about that because to me, it's like writing a song and the lyrics and the chords, like especially if you're doing guitar,
Yeah,
that I understand. But then when it starts, like now you're going to involve people, and some people need it all charted out. I'm like,
yeah,
oh my god, now what? I mean,
yeah.
we have programs now that really help, but
Oh,
that was always the
absolutely.
hardest thing, was to get like that to share it with another musician you're going to perform with, or record with, is
Yeah,
you know that's where you well, you've got a really good band like with you
yeah,
on this. You really
yeah.
do.
Oh,
So
they're awesome. They're so awesome. I'm so lucky that they all said yes. And I don't
mm,
know. And I think, honestly, uh, I think one of the reasons they said yes is because we were all in that, we were all in the same boat during the pandemic. It's
yeah,
like, what are we going to do? I need to do some stuff. I need some human contact. I need to be, and I think it was kind of a relief to all of us. I mean, on that particular weekend that we recorded, I was in the vocal booth. There are some photos on the website actually of us recording,
oh
and I'm in
cool.
the vocal booth. And the vocal booth, so I'm isolated and playing guitar and singing at the same time, because we've decided that I sing better when I'm playing guitar. When I say we, I mean me and Neil. Um,
Wow,
or sing
that's
differently. I
interesting.
sing differently. And the air conditioning stopped working in the vocal booth. So we had,
Nice.
and it was summer in LA,
Oh,
and
nice.
it's out in Santa Clarita. If you don't know where Santa Clarita
Nice.
is,
Warm.
yeah, very warm. And so what we would do a couple takes, and then I'd just have to bail out of there and kind of
Yeah.
get a breath and cool off, and I was sweating, and um, but it was fun. It was so much fun, and those guys just nailed it. I mean, I sent them the demos, and then I just let them do their thing. And Joel, what he played on guitar in those 2 days was just so fantastic. And then, of course, I was lucky enough to be able to send the files to Mark Hart from, who's the Crowded House connection we were talking about. And I'd played in a band with him, a country cover band. And with all these guys, actually, I played in that band, and sent him the files. And he has a grand piano in his house, and so he played a bunch of stuff on it, which was amazing. And then I sent the files to Tim, the pedal steel player, and he played all the pedal steel at home, and then we just put it all together, mixed.
Wow,
Yeah.
amazing how you can do that. And I think that's it. Even though the pandemic happened and shows weren't, and people were doing digital concerts or Zoom concerts and all that kind of stuff, which was great, but not as much fun as a live show, right? It's not. But it was great. Actually, some musicians said they made more money doing it this way. So I was like, well, good for you. Some got into teaching, but it became a very busy, industrious time for musicians to, especially ones who are touring, to just, I can finally write that album. Because I think that's really hard to, I battle with that too. Like I do a Zoom call and then I have to go write an article, and my head's still in, it's like, we call it the in and the out. Like if we're out filming all day in a park and then you have to go and do something, I'm still outside, like to balance the creativity with the, it's all creative, but the performance. So to write and also be out performing has got to be kind of a, you have to shelve that time, right?
Yeah, it's the craft and the art. It's like the two pieces. And I know what you're saying. Like if I'm, it's transitions, right? Transitions between doing one thing and something else that's like a completely different part of your brain or your psyche.
Yeah.
Or, emotionally it's different. And but I think that that was huge. It was always interesting to me, like how much I remember thinking how much of this stuff is going to stick around after the pandemic, what is going to be enduring and what's going to go away. And one of the things that seems to have gone away is the Zoom concert, right? I mean, people are back out there, they're back going to shows, bands are on, people are on tour. You can't beat that. It's unbeatable.
Thank goodness, right? It's the best. I remember the very first time we saw live music, we were in Colorado and the pandemic was still definitely, but they were playing out in the downtown at like where the patio is where people would eat, and they had this band there, and everybody was just like, thank you. How much money can we pay? Thank you, because it was just so exciting, and it just had, everybody just started like, because it was almost like zombies. Even if we're out hiking or walking or whatever, we were almost like zombies. And now I think everybody that argued about whether or not they were wearing a mask and yelled at each other about it, they're doing that on politics now instead. So I think that stayed, but in a different form.
Yes.
But there was this emotional kindness, and people understood the need for being in actual human connection, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And I think we've kind of forgotten that right now.
Well, I mean, I think
the way the world is.
And I think that we, making this record, that was a big part of it. Is like, I think we all felt like, this connection, like we're in a room with a bunch of people doing something creative and positive and good, and something that we know how to do, and I didn't know what the record was going to sound like because I only had acoustic demos of it, I didn't know whether it would be a country record or whether it would be a rock and roll record or what it would be. And that was, dictated to by what the guys were playing. I really wasn't in control. Like other than the last track, Lorelei, I recorded in my house.
Okay.
By myself. So, and played everything on it except the pedal steel. But it was very much a very cathartic thing to do at that time. And like I said, that studio is huge. It's full of amplifiers, it's full of guitars. It's like this huge space. It's got 8-track recorders, all kinds of toys and
Ooh.
bits and pieces.
Mm.
So, and everything's plugged in and mic'd up and ready to go. So you can just go and
Wow, do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever's, ooh, let's do it now. That co-creative process is really interesting because
Yeah.
I think sometimes when you're crafting something or writing something and you have this in your head and then it's like, okay, well now we're just going to do it. That's kind of like a holy crap moment. Now we're going.
Yeah.
And it is going to be what it's going to be. And it's like, cooking with ingredients that and then suddenly you're going to have to do something completely different and someone else is going to help you with it.
Yep.
And to be able to have that, you have to have that co-creative space, and to let go of the control is actually a beautiful but scary thing, right? It's like
it always is. Letting go of any control, right? It's kind of like, it's because it's like in my mind, it's letting go of comfort,
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Oh yeah.
comfortable with this, but comfort and control are often the same thing, like,
That's a good point.
I feel good about it because I know exactly what's going on. Like if you want to go back to cooking, I feel good about cooking this meal because I know exactly I can do this with my eyes closed. I've cooked this thing so many times, and it's like flying by the seat of your pants a little bit is uncomfortable, but I think it's also where the magic is,
And the growth comes, man. You learn stuff.
Yeah,
because it's funny because you were talking about singing differently with the guitar and without a guitar. So I'm completely the opposite. Like I should not be singing and playing the guitar at the same time, not at all.
Okay.
But I did for a long time, and that actually hurt my writing because I can write but don't, like, anyway, it just, the guitar and I are not as good if we're not that great of friends, even though I love guitars, right? So anyway, it's kind of that I could see that if I didn't get help on the other things, that I was just stuck in my own box of what I know. I'm playing in my own sandbox, and you have to add things to the sandbox. Otherwise, the sand just starts going away. It just gets boring. And so you have to have other people, to kind of stretch you and put you in uncomfortable spots. And, that's how they pushed me vocally. It's like, no, you can do this. You're just in your own mind. You think you can't do it until you just do it,
Now, isn't singing an interesting thing because it requires you to think of the thing that you're doing simultaneously to doing it.
And then if you add the guitar, or when people sing and play bass and drums, I'm like, I don't know how the heck they're doing it.
Oh no, that's crazy to me. That's totally, I mean,
I look at Sting
Don Henley. I don't know how
bass.
Don Henley does it, or I just don't.
Sheryl Crow would get out there, play bass and sing, or like an accordion. I was like, what are you doing, girl? And but you could do it. I'm like, good for you. It's it's just I think it's amazing, but the vocals is a hard thing to
I mean, I've sung a lot, and I've spent a lot of years doing. Fortunately, I've been blessed to be able to sing a lot of and arrange a lot of background vocals for people. And
cool.
So I'm very, if there's something that I'm really good at and I can confidently say it is singing multiple tracks of backing vocals quickly. So I can go into a studio and add a choir to your song in 15 minutes with a good engineer, So I'm really good at that. And so I can hear, I'm pretty good at hearing what I want to sing in my head. And it comes out, most of the time it comes out that way,
So that's probably why your dynamics are there, comes from the same thing. If you can hear, then you can do, you can apply.
Yeah. And playing guitar for me while I'm doing it is very natural. Now, it doesn't mean that I haven't made records where I've tracked vocals separately. I have, and it's just different. That's all. Then I get into perfectionism. And when I get into perfectionism, it's like, well, there's a that second line is slightly out and I'll go in and fix it. But when I do it like this and I'm singing at the same time, there's no fixing it. It's like, that's the take, and I'll go, there's a little bit where I went a little bit flat, and well, that's the take, because the Beatles and the Stones didn't have that luxury, right? They weren't saying, It's something slightly flat or out of time. They just went
But
with it.
yeah, and there's something beautiful. That means it's art and real. It's human.
Yeah.
Now when we've got AI, God, I'm listening to all these AI voices on doing videos and stuff. I'm like, what are you doing? This is horrible. Like this
Hmm.
AI voice, this robot voice,
Hmm.
and as we are going into that world of it, and some parts of AI are fantastic as tools, that are really great how you
Yeah.
can use certain things, but you've got to control it yourself. It's like,
Yeah.
here's a tool, then go fix it. Don't just, let it do it, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting to me that you need to have the human touch in there now. I think more than ever, with
Yeah.
everything being, we want everything pristine and perfect. I mean, look at the way houses are now. We've got, where's the creativity in how we all live? It's
I
going
know.
away.
I know.
Everybody has to have the same color. Don't put 3 trees, only two. Oh,
Yeah.
and it must be this way. I mean, come on. I
I
want to
know.
go to every homeowner association and throw paint. Like, just
Yeah.
it's just, come on, have some, creativity. But it's this
Yeah.
weird thing that we box ourselves in, and music is about allowing our brain to expand. I know, not
Yeah.
getting psychedelic here, but yeah, I mean, you can put a UFO on, come on, let it expand.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And then I've got a different UFO on the back, I think. I put a different UFO in the same the same trail. But
Hey,
yeah, I mean, I agree with that. And I think again, if you want to talk about where the spark is and where the beauty is and all that kind of stuff, it's in the imperfections, right? It's like
mm,
it's in, I listen to old records from that time period that I love, and I hear the imperfections, and I think, well, it'd be a completely different record if that wasn't in there, you know?
yeah,
It's
that's
good,
true. Yeah,
And
it's true. That's
so,
why live albums are cool too. And that's what's great,
yeah,
that you guys, the way you recorded it,
yeah,
that
yeah,
is, there's just a warmth to that, and you can feel the energy as a listener,
yeah.
how, so that was great that you were able to do that. Now, are you guys going to play this live, or how does
Yeah,
that all work in regards to people
yeah,
seeing you perform?
I'll probably go out and do some shows. It's getting that band together is tricky, so it'll probably be, parts and then another band. But that's the plan. And just keep on, like start working on the next record, of course,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I need to do that. And just trying to get this one out there. We're making another video for
cool,
track one, which is Stops, and
awesome,
so that'll be dropping soon. My plan is, we kind of talked about this right at the beginning, but my plan is to make a video for every track on the record,
cool.
because people don't click on stuff without moving pictures. They
I know.
just don't.
I
You know,
love I love your video work though. I mean, that is cool.
thank you.
That
Yeah,
is that is I think it's like telling a whole story,
yeah, yeah. That's
So,
that's directed by a guy called Steve Cadman in the UK,
mm,
and I think it captures that whole thing about the two. I mean, it's autobiographical, that song, but about the
mhm.
guy whose life is kind of going one way, and it never says so, but the other guy's life is going in another direction, where he's being chased, down the pike by a cop car, and
Hey,
so yeah, so we and making videos has never been easier either. Like, it's another one of those things that's like, just it's open. There's an open playing field of creativity available to people, and I just got this song on a playlist that I was listening to the other day. I got the message to say, "Oh, you've been added to this playlist," and so I thought, I'll go and listen to the playlist, because it's going to have artists on it I haven't heard, and it just blew my mind. It's just like, great. These are great songs. These people are
yep.
like, there's people out there just doing amazing, amazing stuff.
That's really, really true. I get so mad when people say, "Oh, there's no good music of today." I'm like, because you're listening to typical regular radio,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
plays, sorry, Hotel California 20,000 times. And it's
yep,
no joke. I know, because I travel the country, and it's like, and the playlist, I know that our listeners are probably really tired of me saying it, but it's my biggest rant about the music industry is that radio, I can, and then once in a while when you go in a college town or something, you'll hear,
yeah,
or some kind of artsy community town, it's really somebody hijacked the radio station with, some hippies got in there. But then once I got like, there was somebody had like, I think they were stoned off their out of their chord. You could hear them doing like bong hits and stuff, but they were playing all kinds of cool music. And
Yeah. Yeah.
and it was like reggae and all kinds it was great. I mean, I think that was outside of, it was somewhere in Tennessee, man. We were in the mountains and we're like, no way. You would think, But I mean, we interview musicians all the time, and I get excited because it's new music. I'm one of those that open mind, and it's really hard sometimes too, is to get people to get away from
Yeah.
just the same albums,
Yeah.
and it's like, hey, listen, and it's so exciting to me to hear me, and it's good. And I keep going, God, I want to open my own radio station. I know we're doing podcasting, but that's like, I want to open a radio station so I can just keep playing this all like people.
Yeah.
There's good stuff around the world, and it's like, it's a sea of music out there, and it's like, how do we get everybody out in front? It's like,
Totally. I mean, I've discovered artists in the last, couple of weeks that I'd never heard before. And, and that's not because they're not, that's me. That's on me, like I need to kind of like listen more, and as you say, it's really easy to, to not listen and not put yourself out there. And, but there's people making great music all over the world, in Europe and in South Africa and New Zealand and Australia and the United States and Canada, everywhere.
Oh man, Australia has some amazing musicians.
Yeah.
The really good music scene,
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
I mean, look at Midnight Oil.
I know.
I gotta go back to them. They did some really good protest music, man.
Yeah.
They really did.
Yeah, that album, I remember buying that album.
Yeah, me too.
Diesel and Dust or something, I think it was called.
Yeah, Midnight Oil. Yeah, no, wait, that's their name. Yeah. How do we sleep when the beds are burning? Yeah.
Yeah. We just did a show recently, actually, and back in March at a festival with the Hoodoo Gurus with a headline. And
oh my gosh.
That was kind of fun because those guys are still doing it. They still sound just as good. And it's funny because I toured with them in the back in the 90s when they had some, like some breakout records and all over the world, like I think Canada, they did pretty well. And they're the loudest bar band I've ever heard in my life. Like I only managed to watch them one night of the tour. And after that, I was like, I can't listen to them anymore because otherwise I'm going to be deaf. But I mean, they're still doing it. I mean, it's like, that's the other thing is if you can think of a band, there's a pretty good chance that they're out there somewhere. They're either playing casinos or they're doing something,
Exactly. In the casino circuit, man, that's a whole like tour in itself,
Yep.
It's that changed up too. I mean, it used to be only Vegas, right? And now it's, it really has changed. And so there's a lot of whining, but then there's a lot of good things out there. I think there's more, I think musicians have more control over their craft than they ever have, except for once it gets to Spotify and stuff. That kind of sucks on the money side. Not kind of,
you can't make money. It's hard to make money. It's really hard to make money. The only way you can make money is to go out and play. People don't really buy music anymore unless they're going to buy vinyl, unless you make some vinyl. There's because there's vinyl heads out there, and some people still like CDs, mostly vinyl. I think people love vinyl. But it is hard to make money, but at the same time it's easier to be heard. It's easier to put your music out there. It's easier to create your Spotify or iTunes artist profile and do all that stuff yourself and design your own record covers and all of that.
Even your website. I mean, but even the Spotify thing, it's like you can't get a deal without a high Spotify list now. It's kind of like, what's your social media following? What's this? And so it's like they have to invest in you, right? So they want to see that you have an audience.
Yep.
But maybe you do, and you just don't give a damn about social media. And, and you have a really good, I mean, that's the thing. It's so that world, it's like you could write the best book, but if you don't do the business side, it's like.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you've really got to be prepared to do all that stuff. And, because 1 million streams on Spotify isn't going to make you isn't going to set you up for life. That's for sure.
Nope.
You know,
Nope.
it might pay your bills for a month. I don't know. I don't even know if
Oh,
that's
like
you
if
know.
you're lucky, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully it'll get better, but it has been a pleasure having you on the show. And I want to make sure
Thank
everyone
you.
goes to your website and everyone, it is tedbrownsongs.net. And again, the album is Solstice Canyon Loop. Go get it. I can't wait to listen to it in the car. It's my favorite place, is to just, because I get to daydream, you know.
It's a good driving record. People
It
tell me
is a
it's a
good,
great driving record. Yeah.
that's how I judge albums, is, you know, road trip worthy, you know.
Me too.
And
Me too.
and that's why I said the loop. I love the part that loop, because you're going to want to loop it. You want to listen again. So I think that's also a good mark, you know, of a good album. So everyone, it's out again, Spotify, Apple, Bandcamp, and so go get it and keep up with Ted on his website, and you're on Facebook too, right?
Yep, I'm on Facebook, Ted Brown. I'm on all that stuff.
YouTube and all that good stuff.
Yep. Yep.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks so much, and best wishes to you as you keep playing and keep recording.
Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio. Keep up with our shows at bigblendradio.com.